What coronavirus and the lockdown has really done is it has fractured India further down lines that already existed.
आज रात 12 बजे से संपूर्ण देश में संपूर्ण लॉकडाउन होने जा रहा है.
India's Prime Minister has confined 1.3 billion people to their homes in what is the world's biggest COVID-19 lockdown.
The lockdown undoubtedly contained the spread of the virus. It has also exposed the poorest people in some ways to the virus even more. And the regular thing is most people believe that they'll die of starvation before they'll die of coronavirus. You're dealing with more extremes of poverty. You have millions of homeless people who have nowhere to go. You have, rickshaw drivers who live in their rickshaw.
In our country, a lockdown is actually probably difficult because there are people who have to go to work and, put food on the table. Maybe India doesn't have the luxury of a lockdown.
So many of these areas that are impacted are just so densely populated. You have neighborhoods of 2 million people living in tiny close quarters on top of each other. And they're trying to enforce social distancing in the slum. But it all just seems kind of futile when you get people twice a day queuing next to each other, waiting for food. And just seems like a very Western idea transposed onto India.
It was the breaking point for many of these migrant workers. They've lost their jobs and they're demanding transport to take them to their home states.
This is a country where you have millions of people who are migrant workers. They live a hand-to-mouth existence. To deprive them of, first of all, their ability to earn any money, and then also the ability to get back home, was pretty catastrophic. They just started walking home in the absence of buses and trains. They were just moving en masse. The way that police then met these workers who had nothing to eat and no money was just brute force.
Police have been caught on camera punishing them and making them walk like this.
Migrant workers being subjected to this inhuman way of sanitization. They sprayed chemicals on them.
And they were also accused of carrying the virus. And it was part of this kind of growing stigma, which we're still seeing, which is kind of this almost criminalization of coronavirus or anyone who could be a carrier of it. They have a very kind of restricted view of the media. But when there was the mass migration of so many people after lockdown, it prompted a lot of negative coverage. The Modi government put pressure on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court then issued a ruling which said that media should only portray the official narrative of the Modi government as put out in bulletins, which basically means that the Supreme Court ruled that you couldn't put any kind of controversial coronavirus coverage out. And this is at the same time when people need and want information more than ever.
Indian media and BJP politicians are blaming a Muslim organization's gathering in Delhi for the spread of the virus in the country.
There was this gathering of a Muslim religious group called Tablighi Jamaat in mid-March. It was about 8,000 people, and it was actually allowed to go ahead. India wasn't under lockdown at the time, and this Muslim congregation was then blamed for the spread of coronavirus across India.
It's willful, it's deliberate, it's well planned, it's a damn conspiracy.
इतनी नफरत भारत के प्रति इन लोगों में कहां से आ रही है?
ऐसा अब लग रहा है कि जानबूझकर तबलीगी जमात से जुड़े हुए लोग साजिश के तहत ऐसा कर रहे हैं.
Muslims began to be described as human bombs. They were described as super spreaders. It built up an enormous momentum and it became so kind of damaging and violent. It resulted in Muslim women who were about to give birth being turned away from hospitals, and 2 babies reportedly died as a result of this. Muslims who were giving out the rations to help with the people in lockdown, they were getting beaten up by BJP leaders and local leaders, kind of just fueled a well-oiled machine of hate against Muslims.
Since this government came, Muslims have been lynched, Muslims have been hunted down. But the government's agenda has been this.
The jump from fear to violence in India is so small, and this is something that's really kind of brought that to the fore. And it's a real tragedy that people talking about coronavirus as a kind of leveler, as a uniter in so many places. And in India, it has divided it so much further and fractured it down kind of class and religious lines.